Tal, welcome to the Mr. Beacon podcast. It's been, over 4 years that I've been working at Wiliot, and we started working together, and this is the first time you've been on the show, so welcome.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure. It's about time.
And I have to thank you. Separate to that is, one thing, when I joined Wiliot, I wasn't sure that you would even let me continue to do a show where I covered competitors and that sort of thing, and you did, and we've actually never talked about what should or shouldn't be in this podcast, even though I've covered what some people might consider to be competing technologies. So thanks for that. But we've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. I want to take this opportunity of talking to you, the CEO, the co-founder of Wiliot, to talk a bit about what Wiliot is for those people that don't know. And we've just launched version 2 of the product. So I want to dig into that and talk a bit about what that means, what it is. And then lastly, if we have time, I want to ask you a few questions, our traditional kind of 3 favorite songs, and how did you get this job question. But let's start off with Wiliot. And can you just explain briefly what Wiliot is offering and why it's potentially so transformational?
Yeah, first of all, in terms of Mr. Beacon, I'm really actually very proud of the small contribution that we have for this stage. It's a very diverse and open platform. Hopefully, it will continue to be so. Wiliot is an interesting journey. I think we are unique in 2 ways, and I think both of them might surprise people. I don't think it's about a battery-free Bluetooth. I don't think it's about Bluetooth at all. It is in IoT, but we're trying to change things in 2 vectors, I would say. The first one is that we try to go back and address the T in IoT. I think most people, including me and you, find it easier to understand how you can make a place smart. Because a place has usually a very kind of focused function. It doesn't move. So it would make sense to make it smart, right? Probably most people will understand what smart retail or smart production would mean. But what is a smart thing? Things are so many, right, of them, right? From an insulin injector down to a zucchini. And also they just change locations all the time. So what does it mean to make things smarter is a big question. I'm sure that we will discuss it today, and this is what Wiliot is about. That's the one vector. We go down to the sandwich.
No, I just wanted to call this out because, I mean, at the center of this, so uh, yeah, there are these tags and they're battery free and they do talk Bluetooth, but it's bigger and broader than that. Part of it is, I think, an opinion on why IoT, the Internet of Things, is under delivered. And I mean, just to make it completely explicit, why do you think IoT is? Why is it that we're in the billions and not the trillions? Which is, I think, where we hope to take it with Wiliot.
So naturally, when you make a place smart, I think while the value is kind of clear to people as to what it means, naturally you kind of need the infrastructure to do that, right? Basically, in order to make anything smart, you need to invest in the sensors, the cameras, and everything around it to make it smart. And that means that if you make one location smart, you need to replicate that investment to make everything smart. So that is creates friction. In general, I would say that infrastructure and new infrastructure is something that slows things down.
Because it's expensive, it takes time, and it's like, to me, it's like building the highway system. You can only use something apocalyptic to make that kind of investment, and really,
Yeah.
IoT has not had that. We're not talking about ferrying missiles from one end of the United States to the other, which is what caused us to invest in the highway system. So
Yeah, it's IoT. Yeah.
yes.
It's IoT and it's about the things and assuming that you can add value to anything we use on a daily basis, it remains so in any location. And that means that you cannot rely on infrastructure. So embedded into the focus of things is that you need to be either infrastructure free or any infrastructure that needs to be added to support smart things is really kind of very simple and low cost. I'll give you the most kind of brutal example, right? Uh, why focusing on things relates to us people on a personal level, right? You can go to a smart location if it's a smart kind of retail, right? And today there's so much innovation and a good one to improve how we shop in retail. So your experience there can be flawless, right? And you can buy a piece of food, but once you get that piece of food and you take it out of that store, it will not warn you if it's bad and expired and you should not use it. And I think that more and more, I think we all kind of relate to the problem and solutions that deal with quality of food, quality of medicine, efficiencies, reducing waste, and that tends to be an end-to-end process that relates to things and not places. And this is the one thing that makes us unique. The second thing is the fact that, and this is sometimes gets even more confusing, is that we really think in specific data versus big data. Sometimes when I talk to customers, they're so used to see statistics and dashboards that kind of represents their world that they forget that it can be much simpler. We can try to address the actual problem that is creating this big data representation of it. So what we're trying to do at Wiliot is try to help customers fix the problem on an individual basis. And in order to do that, as I think we've been public about that, our entire business model is about providing multi-dimensions to customers, meaning not just the location of where they are, but the conditions, temperature, humidity, and anything around them, because we feel that this is how the things themselves can fix any problem they encounter everywhere they go. So these are the two vectors that Wiliot is trying to contribute. On one hand, go back to the things, and on the other hand, provide tools so the things can fix themselves rather than just count the number of failures.
Very good. Lot to unpack. I want to get back to the business model at some point, but just double click on how Wiliot does that. So it's about making everyday things expensive, not high value products. Fridges and cars, they're already connected. It's about cardboard boxes and vaccine vials and things like that. But how do you do that? How can you put intelligence, computing power, connectivity into a cardboard box?
Yeah, so you have to start kind of at the basic building block, and that kind of famous kind of label or sticker or pixel, as now rebranded, and it means something. What we design at Wiliot is a device that is simple enough and low cost enough on one hand to go on anything, and we continuously design generation after generation to make it even simpler and higher performance. And at the same time, that same device needs to enable a future of insights and sensing information, even those that we cannot predict right now. So the entire idea is that you enable these labels on an asset, and then these labels transmits enough information to the cloud using an existing infrastructure or a very simple extension of it, all very private and encrypted. It goes up to the cloud, and in the cloud, we basically try and estimate what changed in the physical world. Did it move? Did humidity change? What is the temperature? And not that we do that, what we do more is try to add more sensing capabilities on already deployed assets. Because basically, the way we sense is we estimate a change in the physical world, all modeled in the virtual world. So imagine a customer can deploy millions and billions of assets. And one day we can knock on his door and basically say, look, we think, or we can show you that if you add light sensing, you can see now what is the value that you'll get instead of just forecasting or estimating what it will be. So it's a combination of core chip level design that is not easy to do, from harvesting energy to kind of calibrating and connecting to existing infrastructure, all the way up to data science, cutting edge data science, that basically is the product that we deliver to customers.
So the technology ranges from cloud technology, some edge technology, and some tag technology, or these IoT pixels. What is in an IoT pixel? How do you make a computer for pennies rather than dollars?
Yeah, so basically we design a component, okay, that can harvest energy. So if you look on a tag, and basically let me show you tag
Oh, yes.
right now. So it's a piece of plastic or paper. You can barely see, but there's a component taped somewhere here, and you can see a bunch of antennas. Some of the antennas are energy antennas. Okay, so like the two here that you see on the side can harvest energy from Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and anything in that frequency. And some of the antennas transmit and receive information. And all of the antennas are used for sensing, because the way our eyes into the physical world are the antennas and nothing else. So that chip basically right now gets energy from the environment, wakes up from time to time. There's a dual core computer actually in the chip that you see on this label here. We calculate any relevant information that we think is we should upload. Once we're ready, we transmit fully compliant BLE beacon, like anything else that transmits beacon, and it goes through anything that can read BLE, which is your phone, any simple beacon or bridge device, and it goes all the way up to the cloud as an encrypted information.
So this is not an off-the-shelf chip. This is one that Wiliot has designed. What is it that you have to do to be able to get energy from such a meager source of energy, radio waves? That's probably kind of the hardest kind of energy harvesting that you can do. How do you pull that off?
That's very true, by the way. Yeah, harvesting energy. We're not the first to do energy harvesting. You can harvest energy from light, which is at least one order of magnitude better than harvesting energy from RF. You can actually harvest energy from RF with a dedicated transmitter of energy, like RFID, but we don't want to do that because that adds infrastructure. You can even harvest energy from movements, and that would be more energy than RF. RF is really like the poorest source of energy, but it's always kind of the simplest in terms of the label design. Okay, it's the kind of the lowest cost ability to harvest energy. But if you quantify, basically around us right now, around in your kind of room, in my room, the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi energy levels and cellular are down to a few nanowatts of energy. There is no off-the-shelf chip today that can do anything useful with a few nanowatts of energy. Usually even kind of a chip that does nothing and just leaks energy is 2 orders of magnitude more, 300 or 400 nanowatts. So we have built a chip that is capable of doing something useful with nanowatts of energy. And that is not an easy thing to do, as you and I know on a daily basis.
Very good. We could spend a lot of time double clicking on that, but I want to move forward and talk about version 2. But before we do that, the business model. So we design chips. Is that the business model? Selling chips?
No, and I think, by the way, yeah, and I think some people thought it's a type of a pivot of Wiliot. It was never a pivot. Anyone can come over. I can show him the slide number 1 that I created for Wiliot, and we said that for IoT to progress, customers should be able to pay for value and not make big decisions before they saw any form of value. And if I need to install infrastructure in all my locations, and each location cost $500,000, that's a big decision before I saw any value. So from day one, we said we will design these devices that will be so low cost that can go on anything, but we will not sell them. Basically, we will enable anyone that is able to create enough capacity to kind of purchase them directly. So Wiliot today and in the future and forever will never make a single cent out of hardware or anything around the hardware. The business model is solely around the sensing services that we provide. So imagine an extreme scenario in which a customer applied a label on something and never used its capabilities for whatever reason. We are not paid. We are okay with that because we are absolutely certain that there are so many ways and dimensions that we can add value that the customer, once he sees the value, will activate these capabilities.
So that comes through the cloud, right? And why do you need a cloud component when you have such an incredible chip? What's the why not just
the only ability to sense, if I would add any sensing, even if I would kind of let go on the future proofing and our ability to add sensing in the future, even just adding temperature and humidity and light and movement would make the label just too expensive and not useful. So the only way to do that and not create kind of a cost function versus sensing capabilities is to do it in the cloud and to do it through AI modeled in the cloud. That is the only way. On top of that, if you want to enable a secure world, basically, because we are after tagging everything that is useful to people, you definitely don't want to trust anyone in the physical world, and you want to make sure that your security and privacy is maintained in a place that is easier to protect. So that adds another form of security to what we do.
So basically, the cloud's essential if you're going to have security. The cloud has a role in offloading some of the functions that would normally be done on the device. You can make the device slimmer, lower cost if you're putting it in the cloud. And so the business model's really around selling those cloud services.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because look, we have a very capable hardware team and design team. And I keep kind of insisting that we keep the labels, we should keep improving the performance of the labels and reduce the cost, but we should keep them featureless, which goes against the instincts of most kind of the very capable designers we have. And the reason is that we can help customers by adding sensing services in the future based on what they need versus what we think they need right now. So it creates kind of a pace of innovation that is different than typical hardware. It's not that you need to wait for the features of next year. We can talk with you, understand the need, and in a couple of weeks we can provide a sensing service that caters to your need as a customer versus a kind of a hardware cadence that naturally is very, very slow.
So let's talk about use cases. What can you actually do with this thing? I mean, it's tremendously flexible. It's general purpose. You have to excuse. We both love dogs, and mine's decided to join into the podcast. So tell us a bit about the use cases. What are the things? If I can connect everything to the internet for pennies, what is it that you think is the thing that's going to drive this thing forward?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll give you kind of a set of examples, and then it will look kind of very diverse and broad. So how can we do all of that? And I'll explain how we can do that. But first of all, any example that we see, any customer that we talk to basically has a lack of visibility on his products. And that is across locations, across kind of phases. So it can be anything from a very easy to understand an insulin injector, right, that might be kept out of conditions in the supply chain or used incorrectly at home or disposed of incorrectly after usage. But it can also be a crate of vegetables that are kept too long at the wrong temperature and humidity, or just delivered to the wrong place, or dumped before any chance of being sold at the front store. So any customer I talk to has some inefficiencies in the way they produce, in the way they sell, and the way their products are being used, the way their products are being recycled, the waste management. And that is the common theme to what we do. Any customer, regardless of a product, once he tags a specific asset or a group of assets, the customer knows what is the right way of doing things, how long it should be kept, and what are the right conditions. Is it at the front store or back store? Should it be used once a day, twice a day? Once you do that, our job at Wiliot, regardless of the use case, is to see and identify any violations. Anytime there's any one of the parameters that we call dimension crosses what the customer defined, we know that we need to act. We need to act to fix it. And that is on asset by asset a resolution. So a customer, once he defines that kind of right way of doing things, we will act anytime that specific product is out of the allowed boundary. So use cases usually align to efficiency of supplying products, so the ability to supply products only when they're needed, the ability to guarantee a quality of food, adherence of medicine, the ability of improving efficiencies overall in moving perishable items, in moving livestock, in finding assets, in making sure that people don't kind of excessively buy and stock items, even down to the point that we can measure carbon emission indirectly. So we can price any product individually, not just a category, by his specific history. In the future, maybe even price items based on their specific history as it goes to quality and expiration. So the common theme keeps coming back, and it's always around efficiency and quality to any product. So these are the use cases you and I see on a daily basis, and that is the repeatable pattern. The only question is, how do you do that, right? How do you work in such a diverse of use cases? No one at Wiliot will claim that we're experts in pharma or experts in retail. We're not. And this is why we have created a platform, an automation platform, that enables customers to do exactly what I said. The customers know exactly and intimately what should happen, what is their use case, and obviously we will help them with partners to do that. But once they do that, you can have an asset with a set of 10 or 20 such playbooks, as we call them. The playbook is how things should run. And our job on a generic level, without even knowing what the use case is to watch that asset and look for any deviation and then act based on the action that the customer has defined for us. So that is a SaaS technique. We're not the first to use automation platform, but I think we are the first to do something like that when it is tied to billions and billions of physical assets in a complex world.
So you touched on the automation platform, which is a key part of this new version 2 thing, and I'm going to come back to that. But before we move on, I just want to make sure that it's really clear how putting these tags that are constantly harvesting and broadcasting, sensing information to the cloud, how that can make a difference to the supply chain. How can it make it more efficient? Because I think most people look at our supply chains and they know that there's this thing called, lean, just in time. And I think most people would say, well, haven't we become too efficient, too lean, too just in time? How can you possibly get more efficiency out of something that already appears to be very efficient? How's that possible if you're putting tags on something as mundane as a crate of zucchini or something like that?
Yeah, it's a perfect example, actually. First of all, I wish you were right. I think the level of inefficiency now, as everyone would admit, is definitely not even close to perfect. I think You're talking tens of percentage of loss because of excessive purchase or loss due to quality. So I'll give you like two examples. If a shelf is empty somewhere, that is the time that you need to replenish, and it's an end-to-end process. So you need to create that kind of end-to-end flow that if I have a specific empty shelf, I can basically trigger a replenishment, and it's not the case that replenishment process is fixed and transportation or burning energy to go and replenish full shelves. That's one form of inefficiency, or that because the shelf is empty, the people that are responsible to purchase and replenish the items will just excessively buy because no one wants to see an empty shelf. And so that would be the tendency. So that is one example on how you can do a demand-based replenishment that will improve not 1 or 2%, but an order of magnitude more in supply chain. On the other way around, basically imagine a zucchini crate that is left behind, and it's not like a one zucchini crate. Usually there's more that stay behind at the farmer location. Should stay there less than a day, and it stays 3 days maybe, and the temperature is wrong. We can fix that, right? Because the crate would trigger an immediate notification with escalation path. So people will come and just fix it instead of just counting the defects. Once you do that, there'll be a tendency to optimize. So anytime you fix something and something is left behind, you'll improve the process around it. And with time, we'll get closer, hopefully, to what you describe as an efficient supply chain. Because if you look at vegetables, any fresh produce, or even not fresh produce, the supply chains today don't have enough visibility. A lot of goodwill, but not enough of visibility to get to a kind of a perfectly designed supply chain.
Very helpful. One of the things that I was really proud to see over the last few weeks was Israel's submission to the COP process, the climate change gathering in Glasgow, and you got invited to participate in a program that was led by the President of Israel, and essentially the premise is, how do we solve climate change? Well, there's a lot we can do to move away from fossil fuels and that sort of thing, but fundamentally it's going to be about innovation. And you've already touched on this, but I just want to give people a bit more of a sense of how can connecting everyday things to the internet help to solve the climate change problem.
Yeah.
Just kind of make that.
Yeah, I'll relate it to me personally. When I started Wiliot 4.5 years ago, I don't think it was top of my mind, any environmental. Obviously, I was aware of it's a problem, it needs to get fixed, but it was not personal to me. But I talk with probably 3-4 customers a day, and it's not just a real problem, but it's just something that can be fixed with technology. I think if more companies would decide that we would use kind of the brain power and innovation capabilities that we have to solve kind of the day-to-day problems that people have, we would live in a better world, right? I think it's I'll give you examples, right? Just this week, I think in Israel, they published the food waste level, which is down at the supply chain is at 30% waste. 30% waste. It's not just the kind of the actual net value of that 30% waste, but the resources that we used to grow fields of wasted vegetables, the water that went into it, right? It's unbelievable, right? The fuel that was burned to transport all this information. You're not talking about like 1 to 5%. You're talking about quantities that can feed entire countries, right? It is well known that if you just kind of shrink the food waste globally, there should not be anyone going hungry, right? And there are today. So examples range from anything due to quality loss because of lack of efficiency, up to excessive buy. By the way, people that should be blamed more than anyone at excessive buy is us. Anytime we have to make a decision on how much to buy and what to buy, we make mistakes, but we can get help. So a technology that starts from consumption, from people, from the quality they desire, their patterns of usage of food and pharma. Why should I go into my car and burn fuel to buy the same washing machine liquid times and times again, right? This is like a pattern that happens all the time. Based on how people consume, we should design a fulfillment and supply chain that caters to that, eliminate all waste. All waste. I don't see a reason why there should be any waste management, why there should be kind of full garbage bins just because we make the wrong decisions. If you look at any innovation around data, you see that it's fully efficient, right? Streaming of data, of media, today is fully efficient. Food and perishables and pharma should be the same way. And if more and more companies join that effort and invest their technology to start from people and planet, go back and see how they can help fix it, it's not just the quality will improve, but the profit of suppliers and anything in between will improve. This is why it's upsetting. It's not a trade-off. You can help quality, the things that we eat daily, the medicine we use daily. You can help people while improving profit for anyone that is involved in the process. It's just lack of efficiency.
So yeah, they call it the triple bottom line, helping the planet and helping people be safer, having better quality products, but also helping profit. And you know, to me, this is one of the reasons for getting up and coming into work is there's this massive opportunity that we have. And I don't think it's just Wiliot. I think it's the companies that are starting to use Wiliot's technology. So it's a much bigger ecosystem than just this company that you started.
Yeah, and I must tell you, on a personal level, I transformed in a way that it's sometimes it might be annoying a bit for customers. Like I go into a meeting and basically we talk about how we can improve their asset loss. And let's say their asset loss is what they use to kind of cool meat produce that go into a customer, and I kind of insist to go back and say, okay, we will help you with the asset loss, but can we also help you with the quality of the food that you deliver? So we kind of push on that, and because it's just inefficiency. Most people that think or assume, I ask more and more people, so most people I hear assume that there's a trade-off, basically, that if you want to improve quality, it will just cost more. No, it won't. It won't. Actually, it should cost less, improving quality. So, and more I find myself in a position that I'm pushing more than I should, that we should kind of go and help the core processes that we use all around.
And I think anyone that looks at their fridge or even their wardrobe, what proportion of the wardrobe are you still wearing? Could someone else benefit from that? And I think the exciting thing about this technology is it spans everything from the manufacturing process, the distribution, the retail, into the home and into the recycling process. And if you can use this infrastructure that already exists, all these Bluetooth devices that surround us, all this connectivity, all these radio waves, then this is not a minor change. It's not a tweak. It's orders of magnitude. And that's really what we need in order to solve this crisis.
I think a call for action, Steve, is for anyone. I think if you talk with people, they assume that it cannot be done. So, and I ask even my family, right? If you take a bite into something, you have no idea where it came from, what its history. How do you feel? So people assume that that's the only way of consuming things. And I think with time, people will demand that what they consume has a known quality, and they will demand from their suppliers that what they use will never turn to waste. So if I buy something I wear, if I'm done with it, There was a responsibility to use it again and again to eliminate waste. I don't know how long it will take, but I think it will become the new norm of how people consume products.
And I think most people that have looked at Wiliot have said, wow, this is really cool technology and potentially disruptive. I get it if I go from connecting a few expensive things to the internet to connecting everything, then that could have some profound changes. But, I think the unspoken question, because people are very polite, is it going to work? And when is it going to work? And I think that's why this version 2 announcement, the release, is kind of interesting because it's kind of the next step. So let's unpack that. What is it in this new version 2 platform? Because it's more than one thing. It's actually quite a few things.
Yeah.
So what's new? What's changed?
Yeah, I think let's try to split it into two, not to make things overly complicated. I think let's start with the basic technology, and I agree with you. It's so ambitious and definitely not easy to do that there's always skepticism. Our commitment in the first generations was always from day one to double the performance and shrink the cost by 50%. It's always kind of our commitment for the first generations. And we released Gen 2, actually we exceeded a bit our promise. So Gen 2 basically is a label that has double the range, less than half of the cost. And we're already deep into our Gen 3 design that we're not obviously unveiling, but I can tell you that it will be even more aggressive on these two kind of metric. Why? Because we want to enable them broadly. So that's our mission. Now customers are deploying all the time now. We're in the millions now, so it's not kind of anything kind of a POC that you do with like 10 labels. It's in the millions, and while it's not perfect, the performance that we get is actually better than I thought for Gen 2. We get full visibility, and we get it quickly. So you don't have to wait to install more and more infrastructure. You can go in a day and you tag a large number of assets, and in few days you can see everything lights up and you can see it visible and you can inspect it. And that's true today for the version 2 that we're releasing. The second element that we're releasing is a way to engage with us. And as I said earlier, if we want to work broadly to fix anything from kind of adherence and quality of medicine and pharma and assets and anything in between, how do you do it? So that automation platform we're releasing now, and it should be much easier to customers to engage with us. It's not a lengthy deal signing. We are not looking for any commitment, no big decisions. Customers can start with the simplest test to prove to themselves that what we do can help them, and then grow with the amount of value and information that we deliver. So that platform enables any customer kind of a playground that you can learn, you can exercise, you can purchase specific use cases, specific kits as we call them, to test the things that you care about. You can connect with the partners, and we're training partners all around the world to help anyone deploy, test, ask questions. So that platform obviously is essential for us to keep the broad aspect of what we do and keep that generic focused layer that can provide that entire spectrum of use cases.
So this universal automation platform, universal because you can start to automate everything from a bottle of pills to a cardboard box to some Tupperware or whatever. What is an automation platform, and how does it differ from what existed before? There was, I remember talking about Wiliot, and people would say, well, how do I integrate this? And you'd say, oh, well, there's some RESTful APIs or some MQTT, and people would nod and they'd be pretty happy with that. Why do anything different from that?
So the why is that there are two answers to that. One, we showed a lot of dashboards, like everyone do, and it gets to a point that you see that the dashboard is nice, but it doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't help the customer fix the problem. It helps him see the problem but not fix it. So one response is that that platform enables you to fix it. The way it works is that you basically pick a specific asset, then you pick specific conditions that can be in any dimension, you set the allowed boundaries, and then you choose an action. Now, that action can still be show me the problem, but with time, what will happen is that customers will tend to go, let's fix the problem. If something was dropped at the wrong location, don't just count it. Let's fix it now. Let's fix it in real time. So that is something that we did not have the capability to do, but we can do now with the automation platform. And obviously, the second answer to the why is that we need a way to build a generic capability. We need a way to inject new sensing capabilities. We need a way to keep Wiliot focused on what we're good at, which is to continue to enable this broad network of sensors and add sensing in the cloud, but not just going deeper into being experts in any type of use case, because that will limit our capabilities. So that platform enables a universal approach to use cases. That's one. And the second element is action-oriented IoT versus basically kind of a big data approach or statistical approach to IoT. Now, we're not the first to do automation, as I said. Usually it's kept to a more kind of a SaaS-oriented virtual flows. If something happens, then do that. If something happens to do that, it is not a new concept, but imagine a world in which everything you use, everything you have can be programmed. Anything, and it doesn't have to be day one. A customer can decide after launching a product that he wants to add another kind of program. Let's program the asset to warn me if it's disposed incorrectly. Okay, it's something that you can activate and deactivate all the time, and it just fits the IoT profile because it ties the customer commitment to the value that he sees. And to us, that is a core value.
So this is a drag and drop platform. It's no programming required. So you can set these conditions as you said. How do you connect these actions to the real world, to all the other applications that are out there?
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about kind of automation platform as they exist today is once you're a customer, right, you define the conditions and now you need to decide what action you take. You have thousands of possible connectors or actions that you can take. In 5 minutes, I can show you how I can take a pillbox, right, and program it to do anything from scheduling a meeting, sending an email, or connecting to a specific customer system if it's empty. And you can change that all the time. So that flexibility and the breadth of action that you can take is so easy that I'm sure all customers will tend to just focus on fixing issues rather than just kind of inspecting them.
So we can connect to ERP applications and Slack and messaging applications without having to do any development that's already there. Very good.
Exactly.
I want to talk a bit about, get into the weeds a bit, because I think everyone kind of, one of the dangers is that people's expectations are not realistic. It's magic. It just sort of works. There's nothing that can't be done. And obviously we live in the real world and that's not the case. What is the company doing to make sure that there's energy where you want it and that you can use some of these existing infrastructure? And we've been talking about existing infrastructure. So we're talking about phones, we're talking about Wi-Fi access points that already have radios. So we already have a way for tags to talk to the internet because there's connectivity everywhere. But it's not quite as simple as that, at least not at least with version 2. Can you talk a bit about this three-tier architecture and the way things have evolved?
Yeah, so one of our kind of, again, going back to a kind of commitment or core value is infrastructure free, right? Now, is it the case that I can take any V2 label, place it anywhere, and it will have enough energy to operate and someone to talk to? No, it's not the case. I think, but what is true is that you can always add a specific device that I'll talk about now that will kind of bridge the gap. Okay, now, before I show what this device is for a V2, we will continuously work to continue to shrink that delta of things that you need in the future. So stay tuned. But right now, if you're a customer and you want to track a specific asset, what we do is we come in, and you're right to say that the data path is usually kind of easier, the energy path, because we need to manage two networks, a data network and an energy network. The energy network usually is not as simple. The V2 tags range is not as ubiquitous that you'll always get to an energy source. So we do two things. First of all, we provide more than one type of a tag. We provide multiple SKUs depending on the range and performance that you need. And then we provide a set of what we call bridge devices. Bridge devices can be as simple as this type of a device. Basically, it's a type of a BLE beacon, no Wi-Fi, no cellular. Basically, it's a BLE beacon with basically off-the-shelf components and our software that will do anything that you need, from kind of transmitting the right signal or Bluetooth signal to wake up the tags. They transmit back data. That device will take that data and will retransmit. So replay the same data in a way that we can guarantee will get to that access point or that phone or that tablet that can continue to forward it all the way to the cloud. So there's an intermediate device that is always there, but it's really, really low cost. Okay, so usually when we talk with customers and we quantify their cost of adding our services, that infrastructure piece costs usually less than the technician visit. So that kind of the order of magnitude. So it's still there. It's still something to design. It's still something that you have to think about and you have to model. So it's not infrastructure free in that aspect, but the cost of doing that is really, really low. So that is something that we're enabling with V2.
So this is like a kind of a wireless stepping stone to get from A to B to C, where A is the physical thing and C is the phone or the Wi-Fi access point that's already there. And
the way to
I
look at
think
it, by the way, in terms of architecture, is that this device is also a type of a tag, right? Obviously, it's you need very few of them, but it's not a connected device. It's not that you're deploying a new network in your premise. You basically have kind of think about a mesh of beacons that talk to each other and eventually get to the right place. And this is kind of one anchor of doing that. So that's keeping the cost down and complexity down. But it's still a thing that you have to place somewhere.
So the technology is maturing, the costs going down, the performance is going up. I think a lot of people start to think, well, how do I actually move forward? What is it that I need to do in order to start connecting everything and having sensing built into the product and so forth? So let's start off talking a bit about partners. What is the role of partners in all of this?
Yeah. So, when you and I know well that if we would kind of go back like a year or a bit more, customers would have to wait until they can work with us. That is not a good thing for us or them, right? And because the way we engaged customers was very specific with any customer. The new kind of platform that we talked about enables to quickly onboard anyone that has an interest in using our capabilities and provide him all the kind of actions that he needs to test it, taste it, talk with an expert. It's all right there in one location. So any customer out there that wants to see maybe there's value in there and I want to test it, all you have to do is approach us. We'll onboard you quickly to a platform, and then you'll start to see use case kits that might or might not be relevant for you. You have a list of partners that we train, which are extension of Wiliot. You can pick a partner, or you can assign one for you, and you can have that partner kind of help you choose the right mix of labels, of infrastructure, help you deploy, support, and these partners are becoming key in extending Wiliot globally and universally. As you said, these partners become part of Wiliot in terms of the benefit they see, their expertise. We're launching an academy with multiple levels. We can make them as experts as they can be in order to get there.
And what kind of partners are we talking about?
So at the baseline, the service partners are those that I just talked about, those that will work directly with customers to help them understand the capabilities, deploy, and grow. These are the service partners. In parallel to that, obviously, we work with value add resellers, partners that will take what we do as part of their overall solution. So let's say that your supply chain logistics solution provider, you can use the Wiliot capabilities to embed it into your own solution. We would love for you to do that. Or a retail solution provider, or pharma, or many other examples. As I said, we also work with leading label makers, so they can provide the labels, right? Because it's not part of our business model. We want to enable it affordably, so we work with all the leaders in that field, so they can work directly with customers to enable labels. And we work with the infrastructure providers, anyone from the large enterprise networks down to people that can deliver simple bridge devices, and the customer can choose which infrastructure is best for him. So you have basically 4 categories, from the kind of the knowledge experts, the boots on the ground, the service providers, all the way to label makers, infrastructure suppliers, and definitely solution value add resellers.
So the companies that are writing the applications and so forth. And this is actually potentially a very large pool of partners. There's the Bluetooth industry, which has been working on RTLS, real-time location, and then there's the RFID industry that has been working on auto ID and understands RF. And then there's all of the management consultants. I think people, we've focused a lot on technology and process, but it's going to take a lot to potentially completely change your business model if you realize the full potential of this. And so I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Previously, one of the cool things about working at Wiliot was you got to work with the superstars of the respective industries, whether it's pharmaceutical companies, apparel companies, CPG companies, logistics companies, and we've both been to those early user groups where it was kind of like going to the Oscars. You're like, oh, I know you, and I've seen you before, I've seen your ads and so forth. It was very cool, but there was obviously a cost for those companies to engage, and it wasn't a small investment. Let's talk a bit about starter kits, or kits more generally. Tell us a bit about that, because that is something new. There's been kind of a soft launch. We've been trying this out, but with version 2, we're actually opening the gates to this. So what are these kits?
Yeah, what we saw, which is very common, and I think it relates to the question that you asked me before, it's like when we meet customers, it's really, you get a mix of, oh, there's a lot I can do with it. coupled with I want to see it working before kind of committing anything. So what we want to kind of remove any friction in doing that. So the key purpose is to kind of create an ensemble of use cases and capabilities. So when customers kind of log in into kind of their account, they can and pick an order and buy. It's really affordable, and you get a kit if it's around food, or in the future will be around pharma, or maybe you're just a partner and you want your kind of technician kit, or maybe you kept asking, can we print labels? And you want a printer, or you want to automatically apply labels with a machine, or we'll come up with many kits that will help customers get the first experience of how Wiliot can help them as quickly and affordably as we can. And that will enable also us and them to focus on the use case that they have in mind. So we will build kits as fast as we can. We're still a small company. And so apologies up front for any kind of delays, but we will supply kits for customers based on whatever they desire, and we will keep adding them. And partners will also get the opportunity to offer theirs. So it will be kind of a meeting place of ideas and use cases for customers to experience. And hopefully, once customers do that, they will be kind of more mature to kind of sit and plan for that actually kind of rollout and deployment after seeing the capability.
So we'll start off with starter kits, then more kits for partners for different different use cases. Very good. Well, we're on the home straight. The last chapter of this podcast is we've talked about what Wiliot does. We've talked about what's new and how people can engage. I think a lot of people are kind of interested in the people behind the product and the service. And tell us a bit about how this all came across. How did you get this incredible job, and what led up to it?
So, me personally, I call myself I'm a proud chiphead. So I worked in most of the kind of tech companies. It's the third startup that I work in, and the last startup did something completely different. I was founder and CEO in a startup that developed millimeter wave chipset for 5G technology. Um, I think I always look for kind of a problem that is difficult to solve, sometimes too difficult, but that's a topic for another discussion. Because I feel that we have the team that has a good chance of solving that problem, and then it becomes really interesting on how you kind of grow from that. So, I worked in three startups that got acquired, so it's kind of a bounce between a small company and a large company. So I've been at both. And once I saw the IoT vision, even from 10 years ago, and I worked in large companies in senior positions, I just felt that no one is doing the right thing. And that's like a typical kind of a trigger to open a company, right? And I felt that people are just redefining what IoT is, just fits their current roadmap. It was years ago that I said that once I can, I'll open a company to do IoT from the grounds up. And 4.5 years ago, I came to like two or three investors, and basically I said, look, we'll invent this device that costs almost nothing, but still can sense for so many things that we can bet the company on such a business model. And I don't know if it's doable. Until we build it, I don't think we can model and evaluate if it's doable. So that was 4.5 years ago. It was an interesting first year. I think it took us less than a year to understand that we're within the ballpark. So it's doable, but it should take time, but it's doable. But I'm not alone. I think, as you know, kind of my co-founders, and we brought a team with an impressive track record in designing very complicated hardware solutions. And while working at Wiliot, we understood that there's a second lobe to that brain, and we keep kind of building an unbelievable kind of data and platform team with senior managers from all the right places to lead that part, because we have a physical aspect and we have a virtual aspect, and they meet in the middle in this universal automation platform, and that level of complexity, we need a very good team. So to me, if I kind of inspect on how I thought Wiliot would be, it's bigger than I thought. I knew that will be a play in IoT. I knew that we'll have problems to fix. My concern was always that we'll have to choose a specific use case like you tend to. But I did not know that it will tie so nicely into so many problems and so many even low-hanging fruits that needs to get fixed. That is something that I did not fully understand on day one.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most fun things about this job is seeing all of the problems that could be solved by taking a tiny computer and connecting things to the internet. And in some ways, it's kind of a forehead slapping thing. Of course, of course. But I think, when you discover something, you kind of feel like you have doubts, and you sometimes hesitate to call out what seems so monumental. And I think it's kind of funny. It's great having you on this show, because we kind of met through a related thing. I'd written the Beacon technology book and was doing a one-day training course on Bluetooth beacon technology at RFID Journal Live in Phoenix. And I think you had recently, with Yaron and Alon, you'd recently formed the company, and amazingly in the first month raised millions of dollars of investment, which is kind of unusual to do that when you don't have a product and you're not even sure what it's going to be used for in any great detail. And I remember after a very long day training session, you came up to me and said that you'd started this company, and it was a passive Bluetooth tag. And I had just given a whole day of opining and claiming to be an expert on Bluetooth technologies, and I'd never heard of passive Bluetooth. And so I think actually when you suggested maybe some consulting, you might be interesting, and I think I actually said no. And the reason I said no was because I just couldn't believe it, and I just didn't feel like I was qualified. So I have to thank you for being very gracious and letting me, I was going to say, have a ringside seat to something that's historic, but really it's been kind of, to a certain extent, in the ring. And I think this is kind of...
No, and look, we are going through this journey together, and I think we see the steps. It's kind of basically it all starts with your credibility leverage point, right? So if you see a chiphead, right, promising to eliminate batteries from a Bluetooth device, you're skeptic, but okay, it's within kind of the ballpark of capabilities. If I would come over and tell you, look, we will save the world because we will kind of eliminate any inefficiency with this sensor, you would not meet with me again, right? So it's a journey that we take together, and it's not done. It's just starting, actually. It's super interesting. So thank you.
For sure. So we have this tradition on the podcast where we ask our guests about 3 songs that have some meaning to them, and I'm fascinated to hear what you have in mind. What 3 songs
So
did you choose?
Yeah, and you know me, right? It's I need to think about things like that and kind of analyze them, and because I heard you ask that question, and it tells all kinds of versions, three songs if you would be sent to Mars or whatever, right? So I really thought about it, and the answer is it would not be the best 3 songs in terms of quality. Nothing impressive. I'm not sure songs can be ranked, definitely not by me. But I have 3 kids, and we all kind of prepare their kind of a video clip for their bar mitzvah, right? That's the same age. Basically, it's a process in which you kind of take all the kind of too many pictures and funny videos, and you assign a background music to it, right? And I insist to do that with kind of a hit of the same days that matches their personality. And then you watch it like 100 times, right? Because you sequence the music to pictures, and it embeds the song to the to the images of your kid. When I hear any one of these 3 songs that are not the best of songs, but are like 3 hits of their time, I think about my kids. I would definitely take these to Mars or any place. I think one of them is We Are Young by Fun. There's Catch and Release. And I actually forget the third one I can send you. But if you play these songs to me, I think about my kids. So definitely I would take that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Tal, thanks for giving up some time to talk to us on the show. Thanks for support of the show and letting it carry on in its kind of weirdly independent path. And thanks for kind of this incredible technology. I think it's really just revolutionary. That's a word that's used a lot, but I said no when you originally invited me to do some consulting, but after just a few days of thinking about looking at it, I was completely convinced. So it's been a privilege to be a part of that process. So
definitely not boring. Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Mr. Beacon podcast here on YouTube. You can listen to the rest of this episode on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed it, please like and share this video, and be sure to subscribe for more weekly videos. For more information about Wiliot and IoT Pixels, head on over to wiliot.com.